the three items, as Nina said, the National Endowment for the Arts, Arts Education, and the Arts Museum Partnership Act. I'll discuss those briefly. I'll also go into some of the very preliminary parts about how you might want to think about doing an event and some of the categories that we've decided are most likely to be effective at home. And then Rod Joy will provide further content in those categories as he's done some of these already. The NEA, obviously, we're all very familiar with the National Endowment for the Arts. We've chosen that in arts education because for the National Arts Advocacy Day in April, those two are the most fundamental to the portfolio that we take to the Hill. And certainly going around, each congressional district receives at least one NEA grant. In many cases, it's a Challenge America grant, and that might be a connection to the NEA in your congressional district, and certainly throughout each state receives state funds through the State Arts Agency, and then also direct funds to some degree. And so there's also a new proposal in the budget for a program called Our Town. Chairman Landesman was here earlier today talking about it, and Our Town would be a new investment and a new initiative into community development, economic development, and it might be of interest to your event as well. It might be of interest to your membership at home. In this case, as I mentioned, if you have an NEA grant, that might be a reason to hold an event at a recipient to profile how they've used those funds. The other fundamental arts education issue at the U.S. Department of Education is to support funding in the annual appropriations bill, and at the same time also to bring visibility to the members of Congress about strengthening arts education in the upcoming Elementary and Secondary Education Act, which is due to be reauthorized and has been it's overdue, and is expected to really take place next year. And that makes this time frame really a great opportunity to put some of this stuff out locally to bring their attention to perhaps, in this case, some of the education partners that either your arts groups work with or partner with. Schools obviously won't be open until September mainly, but then that might be a good time to visit a school if you do it in that part of the 50 days. And then the last policy focus that we recommend, if you have the opportunity, is to ask your member to co-sponsor what is called the Artist Museum Partnership Act. It's a piece of legislation that the national arts community has been working to support and pass each year, and it would benefit museums in your district and in your state, and certainly, and as well, artists. It would allow artists who currently when they make a contribution of their work to a museum or a collecting institution, can only take a tax deduction for the value of the products that make up the work, the canvas of a painting or the paint itself. They're not able to take a tax deduction for the value, the fair market value of the piece of work. And therefore, those works don't go into museums as often as they should. And so this would be an opportunity to engage artists and museums in your district as well to highlight this legislation. And so those are the three briefs. We have, I'll discuss the toolkit shortly, but we have the formal issue briefs on those three issues prepared, and you'll be able to use those as part of your event and in planning your event as well. Now, we've identified there's three kinds of events that we think that would be appropriate during the 50 States, 50 Days initiative. We've broken them up into three categories. One being official, and in this case, official means official from the point of view of the member of Congress. The U.S. Senator or the U.S. Representative would be hosting and using his or her resources of the congressional office to sponsor the event. The gold standard in this case would be them convening a meeting of arts groups in their district or in their state and inviting all of you and your colleagues to that meeting and for a discussion or a visit on arts issues, on hopefully these issues, and certainly the National Endowment for the Arts. Those are hard to obtain, and many cases the member, the district office and the staff may not have the capacity to do that within a few weeks. So one step below having them host an event would be them hosting a meeting, which is the common way. Those of you who've already met with the district staff know you call up, you say there's 4 of us groups out here in the district would like to come in and talk to you about arts issues. And that would be with the member during this 50, when he or she are back at home, which is great. But it's not the same as perhaps them visiting one of your venues, one of your performances, one of your exhibitions. And so that would then move into the private event, which is private from the perspective of it's not a congressional expense. It's a private, as in it's your nonprofit hosting an event. And in this case, the most common event would be your nonprofit organization, as you do in many cases throughout the year, hosting an event where you are then inviting the member of Congress or the senator to come attend, either on any level of participation, either being a part of the program as a guest speaker, as the keynote, or perhaps just lower down on the activity scan down to where they're stopping by, you're giving them a tour through your facility, and then you say goodbye, and that would be a basic one. And then besides hosting an event, you could also facilitate the invitation of the member of Congress to something that's already happening at home this summer. Perhaps there's an annual summer music festival that you could invite the member of Congress to. They would stop by, and you would just introduce them to either the audience or walk them around, whatever level of engagement is appropriate. And in that case, that's an event that has already been taking place, and you don't have to spend the time or the resources putting together an original event. And then finally, the last category that Nina referenced before is the fact that there's going to be in many cases, there'll be members of Congress who are running for re-election, and in some cases, you won't have those members running for re-election. You'll have an open seat, and you'll have primary candidates out there, or you'll have new candidates that just won their primary. In either case, it might be more appropriate to invite them to a candidates forum. That could also take place in an arts institution, and the topic, of course, could be on these policy items regarding the arts. And so that would be deemed a political event, and there's a separate set of guidelines to follow for that. In this case, you would have to invite all the candidates for the federal office, not just one. Otherwise, it would seem that you were just being selective about who you were inviting and whether that constitutes support or not. So you would invite all of them. Perhaps not all of them would be attending, but we can get into that if you have questions later. And so I just described, I guess I jumped ahead here, but I just described some of these. A member-hosted event be the gold standard and the highest level of commitment and support to the arts community. And then when they host an event, host a meeting, and you meet with them locally during this recess. And then again, the 2 versions of the nonprofit taking the lead, either with an event or inviting them to an already arranged performance or musical event. And also just to show that in terms of the nonprofit invitation, this could be done in the most simple way, where you could just simply you arrange a conference call throughout the state or throughout the district and invite them to call in and do it via conference call. Perhaps, I know that that's a popular thing that they do. They call them virtual town halls now. And the member can be either in Washington or at home, but it's obviously not as direct a contact as having them visit an arts location. But being able to just host a conference call, if it's a large region, if it's a large state, not everybody's going to drive for this meeting, and that might be one way to accomplish this. In terms of the political events, I mentioned that there's additional guidelines, and we have a separate legal considerations memo that lays out some of the guidelines so that you don't have any concerns about your 501c3 nonprofit organization hosting a political event. You have every right and privilege to do so, but we just want to make sure that we guide you appropriately so that there aren't any concerns about violating a gift ban if you're inviting a member to a ticketed event, which can be done, but we just want to raise these as concerns.